As I'm trying to pull it up, give me one moment, please.
Well, Mr. Oswald is given that. I heard this morning that the District Court of Appeals, I believe, whoever's handling the old Bill 7069, there was indication that came out this morning that that bill is now scheduled to be heard by the courts. And that's 3-4 years ago, right? That challenge was made in 7069.
Good afternoon, School Board, Deputy Superintendent. We are presenting a policy today that is a change in legislation, and they are requiring us to update our policy. And this is a good subject because it talks about some of our most fragile students. And up here we have Elisa Carmona from Legal, and we have the two folks that really support the homelessness in our district, Ms. Beth Leffler and Dr. Aurora Francois, along with June Issa is up as well. We will move through this quickly because I believe you may have some questions. We tried to identify those questions. So the last time this was adopted was July 7th, 2010, and now we're going to go ahead and start the process again today. If you see the growth in homelessness in our district, it's real. It's not a fabricated situation. What's difficult about this number is that's only the identified students. We are doing everything with outreaches and trying to workshop with our principals and school staff on identifying. But if we aren't able to identify, we don't know the number out there. So we're going to continue to work on that and try and bring that forward to the principals again next year and some of the counselors as we do already. The definition is pretty broad when it comes to homelessness, and it should be, because as we define it in our own heads, we have to be pretty broad on how the state sees it. And it's not just that stereotype of homelessness. There is a lot of students that are moving and transitioning through the areas or transitioning because of their family. They really need to be considered that as well. Here are some of the bigger terms for it. That has not changed much at all. There are some gray areas in the previous statute, and that's what we are addressing through this. We're making sure that there is no gray areas when it comes to the barriers. I believe we have extended ourselves as far as possible in order to accommodate any student that appears to be homeless in that manner. We don't want to make that decision. We want to make sure that they are protected and given all the rights through that, including those parameters there. Here's some of the revisions, and these revisions are important. As you can see, the preschool education is one that jumps out at you right away. Of course, it's district administered. If you go to School of Origin, it really talks about the pathway of that child, and not to disrupt that pathway. We continually make sure that the child moves through the pathway of the school that's most convenient or localized through that in the feeder pattern. However, there are times when it's more convenient, especially when you're talking foster children, that it's more convenient to move them to a school that might be nearby if they're traveling at distance. We make every effort to make it at the right break and make sure it's the right move. These students usually don't have a lot of representation, and our representation is really what they have. And we want to make sure that we're making the decision that's best educationally for them, travel time, so forth and so on. We cannot deny them any services. We try and provide additional counseling services, and as we talked earlier in the meeting, as Dr. Robinson brought up, we still need to counsel and be there for every student. Disputes are unique. Rarely do we have a dispute when it comes to homelessness because we always want to err on the side of the child. But the legislation is very clear now that there is a dispute resolution process, and it leans on the child for what's ever best for them. That is not something we've had difficulty with. Again, these are required updates to the policy. We've been doing this, and we're going to continue doing this, and we're going to stay within, well, Ms. Whitfield? Oh, I'm sorry. And finally, all the services, including grade transfers. That seems to be one of the difficult ones. Students coming from homelessness that are moving from school to school or district to district aren't going to have all their files, may not have an awareness of where they are kept or what their folders look like or how many credits they have. We have to go beyond just the normal student coming through the door and extend whatever we can and do our research at the school level. That is clearly spelled out. I see that being one of the biggest barriers, because as students get behind in their credits or not aware of their credits, we know what that leads to. So this is more of just documenting what the statute says. We're in compliance with it, and we're going to continue being in compliance with it. But I really want to thank the two ladies to my right, because this is their work, and this is their creation, and they eat, sleep, and drink it every single day. So thank you, ladies.
Mrs. Whitfield.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for everything you do. Honestly, it's God's work that you're doing to work with these children every day. This is such a great opportunity as the representative for the Homeless Advisory Board from this board for me to talk really briefly about some of the things that I would love to see happen in this area. The first thing that I think is really important is I feel like we're missing an opportunity to partner better with the county. They do a point in time count every year. We don't seem to be a part of that. The thing that's frustrating about that is that they are reporting to the country and to us locally here what the numbers for the homeless people are in the community, but they are not including the numbers that we have. And granted, we count differently than they do. I think there's still a way for us to be involved in that point in time count, and I think we need to find a way to recognize the students in our community who are living in transitional housing, like we mentioned in this. I think it's fabulous that McKinney-Vento keeps children in their schools if they can. I think, when they're going through a tough time, it's great to have their teachers around them. That makes me really happy that we do that work. But I think we have so much more to do for these students than just what McKinney-Vento allows us to do. And I think one of the ways that we can really tackle that is through the work with the county, so that the county has offered, if we were able to give them numbers, that would help them with their fundraising ability, for their ability to make sure that students who maybe aren't even just living in transitional housing but are living on the street, because we have students that really are not under even a roof of any kind, that they would prioritize those children and to help us to make sure that those children get priority access to anything that they may have resources for within the community. So they would like to do that. So I think there's a lot of things that we have to figure out a way to do. I think that the way that we do this is probably through a data sharing agreement. I think we have to find a way to make sure that that happens with the county, so that there can be some sharing of the numbers that we're having there. So I think that's really important. So for that, we need to talk to James Green and the county. Thank you.
Just a follow-up to that, I was fortunate to attend a panel discussion earlier this year, and I believe you were at it. And it was astounding to see the amount of adults that are homeless and to realize what the average cost just to rent in this county is. And when you talk about the adults, they looked at me and said, they have children and they go to your schools. One of the things we've looked at over the years, and as we bring choice up in the next month or two, we've always addressed that foster children have an extra advantage to get in, and perhaps we should look at or be directed to maybe add that in as well for any homeless student to have an opportunity to enjoy what we provide in choice as well.
Mrs. Whitfield.
You just reminded me of one other thing. Dr. LaCava was working previously on something to do with housing, and we had been discussing some of these things about partnering to make sure that people in our community, because we actually have homeless people who work for us, which just blows my mind. So if we could at least try to continue that work, if this is something you're still working on, and the communities are trying to find ways to create workforce housing and housing for our lowest income workers, things like that. I think then you build the community around the children. So when we have families that make very, very low income, they still have a roof to put over their head. And in this community where it's getting so expensive to live, I think that's one way to tackle one of these issues is for people who are really, trying to be employed, that we try to help them to find affordable housing. Thank you.
Mrs. Andrews.
Thank you. And you still have your homeless liaisons. Are they located in the different areas of the county?
Ms. Leffler?
Hi, I'm the homeless liaison. We have 9 McKinney-Vento case managers that work throughout the county and service our schools.
Yeah, I was just wondering where are they located? Are they located in the different regions of the county? And do they have connections with The cities, for instance, the Glades region and Pahokee region, I know they're in the schools and they're located probably maybe at a
I
school.
think one of our greatest relationships actually is in the Glades. We have a very strong case manager, Brunel Williams Desrosier, who is well connected with everyone out there. We're talking to the Housing Authority. We're talking to other folks. I think we do have a relationship out there, a strong one.
Okay, that's just one area. I just wondered if they were working with the cities and the communities.
I think we do a better job with the Glades than elsewhere.
Okay, I'll be checking.
Mrs. Brill?
Thank you, and I'm sure you're looking at this, but to piggyback on what my colleagues have said, you know, one of the populations of homeless is when our children in foster care age out. Because once they age out at age 18, they have no place to go. And so as part of that affordable housing discussion and as far as wraparound services, I think we do need to pay a little extra attention to those students that are nearing graduation age, that are 18 or older, that are in foster care, to make sure that we keep things in place for them as much as we can, and partner with the county to make sure that they have a roof over their heads. Thank you.
So, you know, I had the opportunity to meet with our president of Palm Beach State College, Ms. Parker, and we also started contemplating to build some type of partnership to ease the transition for current identified homeless students as they transition into Palm Beach State. So we started that conversation, and also we've been very fortunate to receive a lot of supplies from some of our community partners, and to again disseminate to that specific group of kids.
I was glad to see in the policy the item that dealt with dealing with the eligibility issue of kids, especially. I had a very interesting conversation about a month ago with a parent who was not in Palm Beach County, but who had a foster child in their house who was going through some very severe emotional problems and was in the process of being reviewed for eligibility and stuff, and how that issue completely stopped as the child moved from one school to another. So that is a big issue, and I'm glad to see that that's being discussed. Mr. Oswald?
Yeah, I want to add, too, that President Kelly at Florida Atlantic University was recognized by Best Foot Forward because of their work with foster children, and they actually designate a full-time position to try to really increase the completion rates for our students who are enrolled at Florida Atlantic University in foster care. And also, we will follow up with Mr. Green with the county to see how we can partner better around students who are homeless.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Our next topic, we have two discussion items. Mrs. Andrews.